Welcome to Both Sides Now, featuring the unconventional duo, Dr. Shirley and medium Kelly White. Two perspectives, one world. This is Both Sides Now.
Well, hello, welcome everybody to Both Sides Now. I'm Dr. Shirley.
And I am spiritual medium Kelly White, and welcome.
Welcome everyone. And hi, John. He is here with us, of course. Otherwise, we wouldn't be on because I have no clue how to run the machine.
Hey, ladies. Good to see
Hi,
you.
John.
Happy Monday.
Great to see
Happy
you, John.
Monday. Well, I think the first thing we ought to talk about is Kobe for a minute.
Yeah, and his daughter and the other
Oh,
victims. Yeah.
the families. Oh,
Yeah.
I was just horrified. I mean, it brought me to my knees. I had a really interesting experience yesterday. I'd gone over the weekend to actually Charlene's mother's memorial, and I stayed with Shirley, which was
Yes.
lovely, and I
Yes,
got to see
we had a
Shirley.
nice time.
Such a good time, and went to a lovely memorial with Charlene and spent the next 2 days with her. And then she drove me back to the airport. And when we drove back to LAX, there was no fog, peripherally. So anyway, I got on the plane. My plane was at 9:15 a.m. Los Angeles, and the plane takes off. And I had never seen so much fog ever. And I'm a real big flyer. I fly all the time. I've flown my whole life out of LAX. I'd never seen that much fog. And and I'm not afraid. I'm a fearless flyer. None of that bothers me. That's not the way I'm going to go. So none of it bothers me. So anyway, so we took off and I thought, what in the world? There's so much fog here. And then I actually had the thought, wow, I hope this pilot knows what they are doing because there was that much fog. And it reminded me of my little brother is Theo Katzman, and he sings this song, Darling, Don't Be Late. And he talks about the marshmallow haze and coming through the marshmallow haze to see your loved one on the other side. And I was actually thinking, is this what's going to happen here? It was really strange.
Yeah.
And then we finally made it through to blue skies, but it took quite some time to get to those blue skies.
What I found interesting is you said you looked around and you saw people's auras, so you knew it was going to be okay.
I did. Once I had this thought of, oh my gosh, is this guy or woman, do they know what they're doing flying this plane? I actually looked around and looked for other auras to make sure that it was all good. Because when you see auras on somebody, you know it's a good way to. Edgar Cayce, I read that in one of his books, and that's what I do. If it's good enough for Edgar Cayce, it'd be good enough for me. So I use that technique when I fly. But for you mediums out there, but anyway, it was just, and when I landed, of course, actually my phone that was on airplane mode, it showed up anyway, which I don't know how that happened. 10 minutes before I landed,
it showed up what had happened to Kobe Bryant.
Kobe had died. Yeah. And I was just shocked. It was horrifying. And so really I send a lot of my prayers out to that family because to his daughter and all the families.
Yeah, because there was another family on there.
Oh, it's just heartbreaking.
It is.
So, and yesterday, this week has been continue to be a very interesting and difficult on some level astrological week because we've got a couple of major aspects that were already being felt yesterday. We've got two big aspects actually. And so, and what I'm about to say is this is going to be an emotional doozy for the week. It's the only words, those are the only things I know what to say about it. It's going to be kind of intense. We've got starting tomorrow, but the energy was already felt. You could already feel it. Venus is conjunct with Neptune, and Venus is the planet of love and, love. And everybody loves Venus. And when it conjuncts with Neptune is like a Venus squared, except Neptune is a hidden planet. Things are hidden with Neptune. And so, but then it would be kind of like a hidden kind of love, that kind of a feeling. But on the January 28th, Mars squares off these planets. And that it means all about relationships this week. So it also means that secrets can surface in relationships. Things that were hidden, could be pictures, videos, could be anything, comes out. So it really takes this love and harmony and kind of kabooms it. So it's going to be a real interesting week. I will say what this is really good for people that, to get their creativity up. It's extraordinary for major explosion, if you will, of talent. So get your talent out right now. So there
That's
we go.
interesting. I mean, on two different facets,
Yeah.
possibly of someone's lives, or
hmm It's going
yeah.
to bring, again, this 2020 is about change, major.
Well, it
So
seems to be definitely going that way. So
yeah.
we have a very special guest who is kind of all about change in a very interesting way. I met her and fell in love with her immediately in the somatic experiencing classes. She is actually an attorney on top of everything else that she does. She's a professional coach, somatic experiencing practitioner. Her name is Cynthia Boakley. She works intuitively with her clients to help them find the best path to their authentic selves. And she does it in she's combined so many different modalities, which is just fascinating. She's well known for her proactive coaching and believes that we're not taught to live embodied, which I absolutely agree with her. She believes that we live from our heads and from our frontal lobes. And being an attorney and a body worker, she would absolutely know what she's talking about. We thus shut off our connection to our bodies, which is an incredible impediment to healing and to really being intuitive too,
Right.
and to our ultimate success. So together with Cynthia, we'll explore today how to truly be embodied and how she teaches people how to be able to do that, to be embodied, aware, and connected in our own internal power. The connection is what creates profound healing, growth, and change. So welcome, Cynthia. I am so glad that you're on the show with us today.
Hello,
Cynthia.
I'm
She is.
thrilled and honored to be here. It's so wonderful to see your beautiful faces again. And I'm thrilled to get a chance to talk to you, and especially to talk about embodiment and showing up fully.
Absolutely. So tell us how you kind of put everything together, because to be an attorney, you have to be very left brain. I mean, you can be right brain too, of course, but it really kind of takes you to that thinking and teaches you how to think. And
It does. Kelly and I had an opportunity to chat a little bit before we came on. And I was saying, in law school, they essentially break you down and beat you up until you're this little pulp. And then they mold you back into that image, of that little warrior. And, I was just doing a CLE, continuing legal education credits. I was just presenting one of these the other night. And we were talking about that warrior self that you get into and how it's so hard to just let that armor down. And it's the mental armor, it's the physical armor, it's the energetic armor, even though we don't really talk in those terms as attorneys. Most attorneys don't speak in the more woo-woo energetics that I happen to enjoy. But so I've always been super intuitive and really into body-mind connection and health, and just trying to figure out how they all came together. And then when I went to law school, it was interesting because I needed the balance, and I actually became a Reiki master while I was in law school.
So
I needed that.
You're probably the only one who's ever combined the two, right?
Exactly what I was thinking.
That's what I'm told. I don't know. I'm sure there's another one of me out there somewhere.
I don't know.
Neither do I. How did you get into that? I mean, how did you first learn about Reiki? How did you think of doing that to almost balance out law school? I mean, my daughter just graduated law school, so I'm getting she's home
and
now and
congratulations
getting a sense of how.
to her.
Thank you, but really getting a sense of how they teach you to think, as you said.
Yeah, and a lot of things converged, as you ladies know, often happens in life, and it was sort of the perfect storm. I started having debilitating anxiety attacks in law school.
Wow.
Just horrific. And it was so bad that, I actually missed class a couple of days. One day I was supposed to present and I just couldn't. I was just sick to death, or I'd get in traffic and everything would just shut. It was horrible. And what do? You go to the doctor, and they handed me a bottle of Xanax and said, take these. And I did that once, and I said, I won't do that again. And I started learning how to meditate, and I got a spiritual teacher, and I learned how to teach meditation and started really getting a handle on what was going on in my body from a physical, emotional, energetic standpoint, and then looking at the intellectual piece and how that tied in. And so that was kind of the beginnings of that. And through that journey, I ended up getting more involved in Reiki. And then I eventually became a yoga instructor. continued teaching meditation. And it was the one thing that really kept me sane and balanced through law school, which was a really hard fit for me. It was great intellectually, but from a personality standpoint, I think, and just an embodiment, like connected to yourself standpoint, I think it was it was a pretty hard fit.
How did you fall? Did somebody just mention that to you, or did you always have kind of a spiritual practice or idea before you got into law school, as far as meditation and Reiki and all of that?
Yeah, no, Kelly and I were talking. I've always been super intuitive, and even as a little girl, I remember being out in the woods and just feeling this intense connection to nature and to spirit and just everything, right? Just that one with everything sense. And as you grow up, it's interesting, as you grow up and you learn how you're supposed to be in the world, that can fall away. And for me, it did for a while. Yeah. And so coming back to that was a bit of a homecoming. And really welcoming that back in a different way.
Yeah. You're a true empath.
Oh yeah, for sure. For sure. And I mean, that's something that you really have to navigate, right? Because when you can feel, you're so sensitive to everything that's going on around you, you really have to navigate what you let in, what you don't, how, how to differentiate between this is yours, this is mine, what do I take on, what don't I? So there are a lot of nuances to that.
Right. So true. Wow.
Yeah. So interesting. It was an interesting path for sure. And so I'm hoping to be able to continue offering to the professionals of the world. Like, most of my clients are high functioning professionals, and they struggle with stress, overwhelm, burnout, and anxiety, and really helping them figure out like what's going on in your body and how can we get you back to some, regulated baseline, instead of that fever pitch of just panic and terror that we go through.
Yeah. How did you start? Well, I guess early on, while you were going to law school, you started to combine all of these things. Is that how you kind of got to what you do now? Is that interest of combining all of them and teaching people really how to be balanced? I mean, that's kind of in a nutshell what you're doing, is teaching people how to be balanced.
Yeah, how to use all of their gifts that do exist from here up, right? Which is where we typically live in professional worlds. But also with everything else that's going on, all this wealth of information that we have in our bodies, and not just kind of being stuck in our heads. And Shirley, honestly, it was self-preservation initially. It was just, I can't have these anxiety attacks like this. I can't walk around like this. I need to be more self-possessed. I need, where is this person that was very connected and, and felt kind of at peace and at one with things. And so that was, was self-serving, I think, initially.
Well, self-serving or self-care and self-compassion. Yeah. We have this, it's funny that you mentioned that term, because this week I've had a few people talk about, well, I was feeling sorry for myself. And we have this idea in our culture that anytime we think about ourselves or we take care of ourselves, it's either feeling sorry for ourselves or being indulgent or something. And it truly is all under the umbrella of self-compassion. Yeah, I think. And it's such an important thing to reword or redefine in our minds, that it's about self-compassion.
Self-compassion, self-love, self-respect, even like respecting what's going on with yourself. I mean, not at the expense of others, obviously, but being able to take care of yourself so that you can help others even. Right?
Exactly. In addition to, not instead of, it's in addition to, but we always forget ourselves and are always thinking of others, which is, forgetting of ourselves isn't great, but that's kind of how we're taught in our culture. It's the most interesting thing. I don't know how that started.
I don't know either, but I know that I see it a lot. I'm sorry.
Work ethic, that
work ethic, being raised. Work ethic. Yeah, for sure. It's interesting. One of the exercises I like doing with my clients is this idea between service and sacrifice, right?
That's a big one.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I mean, this is something that even you can try at home, right? You stand on your feet and hold your arms out and then lean forward. And because we want to be of service, we're leaning forward, right? Mm-hmm. But there's only so far you can lean forward before you topple. And it's a really good barometer to feel in your body of like, where am I being of service, where I'm grounded and I'm in my own power and aligned, right? And then where am I sacrificing and kind of coming out of myself, if that makes sense?
Oh, I love that one.
That is such an interesting exercise because it is quite the metaphor where you feel where the balance is, and when it gets out of balance, you actually lose your step and you trip. You know,
You
when
lose
it's
yourself.
when it's too leaned forward, too helping others and not enough of self-care. So what a nice way to feel it in your body. Where is that balance? You know?
Yeah. And I mean, as you know, with somatic experiencing, so much of the body wisdom, can teach us if we can get in there and feel something in our body. It really teaches us for us because my service is going to be different than yours or yours, Kelly, and where our breaking point is different any given day of the week, right?
Oh,
So,
that's very true.
or with what's going on
If
in
you
your
had
life.
been on the show a couple of weeks ago, I had a breaking point. So
Yeah,
I mean, seriously, it was just I got hit with enough and I was going to topple over. So if
Yep.
somebody is here in their head, which, again, most professionals or most people who work are, that go out every day, and if they're stuck in their head, how do you move it? How do you move it? How do you get the energy to move?
Yeah. Well, I hear two questions in there,
Yeah.
right? How do you get the energy to move? But also, I think it starts with awareness, right? Many of us are aware of when we have to use the bathroom, when we want to connect with another in a sexual way, when we're hungry, when we're thirsty. And the hungry, thirsty, I'll tell you, I can't tell you how many people just say, I'll be at work and I'll be so stressed out that I'll even forget that, I haven't eaten in 6 hours, 8 hours. So it's starting to begin to pay attention to what's going on. Even if, sometimes my clients need little reminders. So they'll set an alarm on their phone or, on their computer, whatever. And maybe a couple times a day. I've got people that sometimes do it once an hour, but a little reminder to check in. And even if you just kind of feel your seat in the chair, right? Feel your
That's what you
back
always
against
say, Shirley.
the seat. Right, exactly. But I mean, even little things like that, feeling your feet on the floor, it starts to really get you back into your body and more aware in a way that it's hard when, many of my clients, we talk about like anxiety blinders, like when the anxiety comes in and you're right here, right? You're just so here and the rest of the world is just wah, 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 wah out here.
Yeah.
It begins to broaden that awareness of what's going on in here.
Right, exactly. Rebecca says, I learned if you have anxiety, you need grounding. Absolutely, because anxiety is about fear. And when you're feeling a lot of fear, there may be times when something's coming at you, and so you have to, but the primitive part of the brain is always ready to go when it comes to that.
Right.
When you're feeling anxiety and you're sitting in your kitchen or you're sitting with a friend, grounding yourself puts you in the here and now. And so in the here and now, you're able to go, oh no, I'm sitting with my friend. The tiger isn't coming at me. I'm safe. And that will then reduce the anxiety. And it's all about, as you're saying, Cynthia, awareness, to be able to be aware of that so we can tune in and know what we're feeling at different times.
Absolutely. I mean, and Kelly, you asked about, how do you move the energy? One of the things that I notice happens with anxiety, at least it happened for me and everybody that I work with says the same thing, is that it ends up coming up here, right? It's like there's this feeling that's up here, and it's like it swirls. And so grounding really helps bring that attention, that energy down and getting that down. I mean, I had an experience where I've actually years ago, put weights on my ankles. Remember the little workout weights from like the 80s and 90s? And for somebody who's not practiced in this, who's just getting started, I mean, that's a very simple, easy grounding. It really brings your attention down to this solid, grounded, weighted feeling, because so many of us want to come right up out of our bodies when we're that anxious.
Well, and you know why? And Kathleen, she's saying, "Oh, please, how do I become balanced?" And you'll help all of us with that, Cynthia, in a minute. But you know why it's up like this? I heard this in one of my neuropsych classes, and I thought it was just so fascinating. It's because it's all about survival. We go like this to get bigger, so the predator that we believe is there, that's why we have so much anxiety, will think we're bigger than we are, so they don't attack us. And so that's why anxiety feels like it comes up, and we try and get bigger. And that's why when we ground, we can, I know but it's all about survival. It's everything that the brain and the nervous system does in order to survive. That's how our species survived.
Right. And how many times we talk about, like, we're wired not unlike the animals, right? And how many birds do you see puff up when they're upset or threatened, or cats or dogs, or I mean, everybody.
Yeah, it's an absolute survival skill. Yeah,
sure.
to look bigger to the predator. So how do we, what are some, I mean, that's a wonderful exercise about putting the hands out and leaning forward.
Mhm.
What are other exercises that you can teach our listeners on how to become more balanced, or how to realize whether you're out of balance to
Right.
then do things to become more balanced?
There are so many. So I think it depends on which domain, right? So the service versus sacrifice, that's really good in the domain of how much am I giving out? How much of my attention
Yeah.
and energy am I giving out? And where am I kind of not taking care of myself there? A simple exercise that you can do in terms of just feeling into your body and where your balance is if you're standing
Mm-hmm.
and you feel yourself equally weighted on both feet. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then notice what that feels like. I like to have people bend their knees a little bit, drop your tailbone. Almost imagine that you're sitting on like a giant long dinosaur tail that's balancing you out, right?
Yeah.
And then so you've got that stability there. And then from there, gently shift over to your left side.
Mm-hmm.
Feel that. Notice what happens when you're on your left. Gently shift over to your right.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you can even do it in your chair and kind of feel like, oh wow,
Right.
where am I? And if
Yeah.
you notice, I'm
Right.
watching you ladies shifting
Right,
side
right.
to side.
Right.
And if, even in your chair, you notice like, wow, as I do this, I go, wow, my right, I rode my horse yesterday for a long time, and my right sacroiliac is a little stiff. So you can even do it just in your chair at work.
Yeah.
And that's a really good way of where am I and how am I showing up in space here?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
that's an easy balance
When
technique.
I noticed myself doing it, since, I think you have more movement, Cynthia, since you do more coaching, but, Kelly and I are sitting all day long. So I've noticed I just do that kind of naturally. Once you're trained to tune into your body and kind of every so often tune in, I noticed myself kind of balancing my sit bones to make sure that I'm not sitting, leaning to one side or the other, just to kind of make sure, since I sit for so many hours a day. But, and I don't know how you did it, Cynthia, but when I first learned about somatic experiencing, I just put the word feet, in a Post-it in my purse and on my computer. So it would just remind me to notice my feet. And so then
Notice
my
your
attention
feet.
would go there. And then in that way, you notice your whole body. And so now I notice when my stomach gets tight. I notice, throughout the day, am I sitting balanced enough? And you just kind of start to do it automatically. But you have to train your brain to do that, because we're not.
You absolutely do. I mean, and like the beauty of neuroplasticity, right? So
Right,
that we used to think years ago that what you got up here, that's it for life. Now we know that we can make all these new connections, and it's just a function of practicing and continuing to do that. And if you keep bringing your awareness, even as you're standing in line at the grocery store, right?
Mm-hmm.
Noticing what's going on, noticing your feet, noticing how you're standing, right?
Right.
Am I always on my left side? Right. I noticed years and years ago that my left side is kind of my grounding leg. I tend to stand on my left, but then maybe bringing it over to the right. Even that little shift and awareness is enough to bring you back into the present moment and get you out of whatever is going on, with the checkout person or whatever is in front of you or what's back at the office or whatever. Something that simple.
Wow.
Yeah. All little
Amazing.
ways to just kind of get you down out of your head. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. So Anna is saying, I have anxiety and chronic pain and had Reiki yesterday, which helped, as I have been panicked because my doctor who prescribes my medicine is retiring soon, and I'm having an impossible time finding a new doctor to prescribe my medication. Awful. Well, Anna, if you can let us know where you live, maybe we can give you some referrals if you know anyone in your area for a good psychiatrist, if that's the kind of medication that you're talking about. But what can you, is there anything that comes to mind, Cynthia, to help Anna out?
Well, I mean, I think just first of all, I want to validate. I mean, if you have something like medication that's been helping keep you regulated, and the idea of this relationship ending, the person who's helping you with this and has probably talked to you about what's going on with you and is a source of comfort and connection, in addition to knowing that, holy cow, where are my meds coming from? That's all kind of scary. So even just kind of acknowledging that and recognizing how that's showing up in your body can help you kind of shift through that. And Shirley knows one of the things we do in somatic experiencing is noticing where the fear is or where that sense of nervousness or anxiety is, and then noticing maybe your feet or your kneecaps, or sometimes I have clients that even say, my hair. My hair is the only thing that doesn't feel anxious right now. And so we just spend a really long time just checking in and anchoring into your hair where you don't feel anxious. So if you shift your attention to that area where you don't feel as anxious, that sometimes gives some of that anxiety the opportunity to dissipate a little bit. But I think it's important to find a new psychiatrist, somebody that can provide the continuity of care and help move through that way.
Yeah, and I
Is
also
that helpful?
it's very helpful, and I also want to validate that. I've had several clients that have had this situation before, and it is nerve-wracking. So
Yeah.
going through that, and often the doctors will give you a referral anyway. So I would ask for a referral
Yeah.
also, but it
Yeah.
is
It's a great
scary.
idea.
That is the scary one. I don't like
Yeah.
that one either.
Well, you
Yeah.
feel like somebody knows you, and
Mhm.
it's a point of connection, and it's a point of being seen,
Yeah.
Yeah.
which is at the core of attachment as well, even if it's seen in this specific area, but still, it's a
And in
very
one of the
important
most
piece.
vulnerable areas you have, right?
Totally.
Because taking medications, especially for a psychiatric issue, many times feels really vulnerable. So that is
Yeah.
an important place to be seen.
Oh,
Yeah.
look, she has not been
Oh,
able
she
to
has a
find
somatic
anyone.
therapist.
Fabulous that you have a somatic. Nobody knows how to help. Well, I get maybe look at your insurance, Hannah. Start that way.
Yeah. Yeah. And call people maybe while you still
Yeah.
have the support of the person you're working with. Call people around your insurance company and talk to them on the phone and see how you feel. And then
Yeah.
maybe you can have them talk to the person that you're working with now. So there's some connection there, and go that way. I wouldn't wait until your doctor leaves before you start to look for someone. I think it'll feel a little bit better to have the new doctor talk to the old doctor before she leaves. I think it'll help you feel a little bit better as well. So I would really get on it now and not wait, even though
For
it can
sure.
feel
Yeah.
a little immobilizing. We tend to freeze when that kind of stuff happens.
So Stacy asked, does this also help with chronic pain? I have lower back pain and nothing helps. Cynthia?
Yes, actually. I have a client who's got chronic pain, and it's really interesting when you give the nervous system the opportunity to start regulating itself. Any of the chronic pain that is due to the dysregulation can be attended to that way, right? So we've had sessions where she would feel flare-ups and throbbing in her arms, for instance, and even just through tracking and awareness and then processing what comes up through that, just say, I can hear her in my head saying, oh my goodness, like the pain is just going away in my arms, it's dissipating. So while I don't want to promise anybody a magic pill, this is, somatic experiencing is not, but it's absolutely incredible the way once you start tracking what's going on in the body and giving your body the opportunity to release some of those responses that maybe it's been holding on to for a while, it can absolutely help with chronic pain.
So when somebody works with you, Cynthia, what's the first thing that happens when you work with them? Do you hear their story? Do they, as a coach?
Sure. Yeah. So it's interesting because many people want to come in and they're like, okay, this is my story. It starts when I was 5. And,
Right.
our first goal is to really establish some rapport, give them some tools for like creating that safe container, right? Because it's really important. Even if you come in and you're so bent on doing this, you're like, no, I know this. I'm good at therapy. I'm going to do this. Creating the container for that coaching and SE relationship where you help them with the basics of like really starting to give their body what it needs to start coming down a little bit, because so many people, especially when you're in, we talked about the corporate world earlier, when you're here and you're out and you're just doing stuff every minute of every day, we often live in this highly activated state. So even to give people the slightest little taste in their nervous system what it is to come down,
Wow.
or to pause. And people are
Yeah.
like, no, I want to tell you the story. And we go,
Yeah.
okay, well, let's just pause, because the whole idea is, as you start activating, we don't want you spiraling up, because that's where you're living, and that's where you're, or spiraling down, dissociating. That's where you're running into these problems. So the idea would be to slow everything way down and give you the opportunity to process in a way that you just haven't known how to do yet. So the very first steps are just kind of explaining a little bit about, we're going to ground and we're going to orient, and these are why. We're going to find some resources for you. This is why it's important to have resources in your life, and why it's important to your nervous system to have those. So we start really gently and lovingly.
Can you talk a little bit about resources, what that
Yeah.
is? Shirley's mentioned it
Sure.
many times, but for the new listeners.
Okay, I was going to say, I'm like, I trust the Dr. Shirley has done a
Mhm.
good job of resources.
Great job.
So, right? So, resources can be anything, anything that really helps you get to that place of calm, stable, relaxed, like that really sweet, loving feeling. Pictures of your children, right? Pictures of my horse for me, my partner. You know, memories of times that you felt really safe and you felt really connected. Memories of relationships of people who were really there for you, where you felt seen and heard. Resource can be, I have these beautiful mountains outside of my office here. It's part of the Phoenix Preserve mountain range. And so my clients will just look out and they'll orient to the mountains. Or I have, you know, an aqua blue dragonfly on the wall, and they'll pick out that color and draw into that. Anything that feels soothing and gives you, it's, you know, we talk about in SE, you have this kind of trauma vortex, right? This whole area that you get sucked into when you're anxious or dissociated or upset or angry or stressed out, overwhelmed, burned out. And so the idea is we want to create this other area, this kind of pool of calm that you can go to start, as Dr. Shirley was talking about, kind of rewiring so that your brain learns how to go here instead of always just shooting over to this side.
Mhm.
Wow.
So balancing, being able to balance things out, because when you're very upset about something, or even highly anxious or highly stressed out, and you stay there, then it's not, you know, it can pull you out of your window, and then you get even more stressed out. And that's when we use artificial things to kind of calm us down, like drinking or overworking. And so it's finding something that pulls you out of there, even if it's just for a moment, to think of something, bring that image in your mind that calms you down. And so now this neuronal circuitry is being activated. We'll call it the calm circuitry. And the active one isn't. And so for a moment, your nervous system is able to experience this, particularly if you haven't had a chance to experience what calm feels like. And so it's a way to start to balance both of them out. It's a way to build that container of feeling calm. So now, as a coach, though, do you then initially find out what area either of people's lives or of their working life either feels stressed out or isn't where they want to be, and then you start to kind of navigate to find out why and how to get them there?
Yeah, sure. I usually, my clients come in and they say, I am so anxious and this is what I'm experiencing and this is where, and they've got a really good handle. And again, I mean, I'm working with high functioning professionals who are out there in the world. I mean, they're aware, maybe not necessarily of what's going on in here, but they certainly know where they're not hitting the performance goals that they want, right? Where they're not feeling like they're coming from a sense of well-being. And so, yes, we explore that, but usually they're pretty aware of that when they come in. And there's a lot of anxiety. There's a lot of, you know, how do I get all this done in such a short period of time? And we try to slow things down to help them expand that out and explore what it would look like if they had the opportunity to perform the way they wanted to and hit those well-being markers of being grounded and being resourced. Kind of like that wrench in the spokes, right? It's like we were talking about resourcing, and I get this picture of this wrench in the spokes of this wheel that's going and spinning and spinning and spinning, and all of a sudden there's this moment where you throw this wrench in and it stops, and there's that pause. And in that is, you know, the opportunity for shift and growth and healing.
Yeah. You know, it's interesting that you put it that way, because sometimes if we're not aware enough to do it for ourselves, then the body speaks louder. Or there's, as you know, Kelly, from a spiritual standpoint, maybe there'll be, you know, an
something
accident
steps in.
something steps in to throw that wrench in there to stop. And more often than not, and I'm very tempted to say every time, once you do the work to work through that, you realize, you know, how important that event was, whether if it was a body, you know, an illness, or, you know, an event
Well, and
outside of you.
sometimes, Shirley, how it works is before we incarnate, we plan these different things that we want to accomplish for the growth of our soul. So if our soul comes in to really learn about slowing down and taking care of the body and paying attention, and you don't, then you also put in something that will make that happen. So you can do it, as they say, the easy way or the hard way.
Or the hard way.
It all comes down to that, doesn't it?
That's so true. I mean, I've seen it over and over again that the body will speak louder.
It's something will break down. Yeah.
Yeah, and so many times I see instances where, as you mentioned it, drugs, alcohol, but it could be cheesecake, gambling, shopping, any number of things where,
Could be anything. Over scheduling yourself, overworking. I mean, yeah.
Absolutely. And we just silence the body even, right? I'll go so far as to say we go, no, I don't want to look at that. I don't want to deal with that. And so we silence it. And so it does. It starts speaking louder.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is that true?
So gosh, I almost want to invite us all to just like kind of come back in, and we've been talking.
Yeah.
I almost want to invite us all to feel our butts in our chairs and our feet on the floor.
And it makes such a difference. In that reminder, I felt just a little bit more present and more, calm. It's so interesting how it's just a reminder to notice. Many times nothing more than that. Just like you said, notice your butt in the chair. Oh yeah, okay. And so you're kind of back in the room.
Yeah.
Do you do much with breathing?
Yeah, I do. I invite people to notice initially their own breathing patterns. I think breathing can be amazing, and it can also feel a little bit directive and intrusive into what is going on with somebody in their own rhythm and their own pattern. If I say, take a deep breath, and you're not in a place in your body that it feels safe to take a deep breath, that can feel a little forceful, that can feel a little intrusive. And if you're somebody who's had trauma, right, inescapable attack, sexual assault, physical assault, that type of thing, me directing you to do something with your body other than noticing can feel a little intrusive. So yes, breathing is amazing. We did a lot of that as a yoga instructor, a lot of in my meditation. If you're coming just for meditation, then, I'll talk to you about breathing and breathing, where you want to breathe into and what you want to breathe into there. A lot of visualization with that. So I think it's domain specific. You have to be really careful what you're dealing with and be able to really read what somebody's going through in order to start directing breath.
It's interesting that you say that, and I'm glad you asked that, Kelly, because I had one of my clients who said that she went to a woman that was helping her with breathing, and she said, breathe into your pelvic floor, and she comes from sexual molest, and so that triggered her immediately. So you have to be very careful with that, very careful with the breath. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, very sensitive to what's going on in somebody's body and their histories.
Yeah. And I think we tend to, and I think we've done the same thing sometimes, Kelly. We didn't realize it with like meditation. People are supposed to feel okay meditating because it's like the thing to do. And I'll never forget the first time when I was doing meditation, I was in a mindful awareness class, and he puts us in this meditation, and it's supposed to be great. And he says, and I think I've told the story before, but he goes, can you be okay with how you feel in this moment? And I jumped into anxiety. It was supposed to be relaxing. The moment I went in, I jumped into anxiety because I've come from neglect. And so being in is scary. That meditating in for someone who comes from neglect and was left alone doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel calming. I think when you come from more chaos, then yes, but when you come from neglect, there's already no one there. And so when you go into yourself, and it was so interesting. And so then he said, and if it doesn't feel good, ask yourself, can you be okay with not being okay with what you're noticing in this moment? So it was a wonderful thing about being mindful of the moment, whether you're okay with it or not.
Yeah.
But the meditation, I think, is like the breathing, where we all have this idea that breathing is great. It always centers you, and that meditating is always great. And it always relaxes you. But for some people, it doesn't.
Right.
We have to be careful with that.
Right. And I think there's been so much around breathing. Take a deep breath, right? Go take 5 deep breaths and you'll be fine. I even have clients come and sit in here, and or on Zoom, wherever I work internationally, but it's almost like they're doing this forced breathing. And I'll have to pause and say, what's going on with your breath? Because they're like, oh, well, I'm going to calm myself down. I'm taking these deep breaths. And then we have to really explore, like, well, what would it be like if you didn't force, right? Or if you didn't create an artificial sense of whatever that was and just track what's going on in your body. And I think that's part of, I think it goes back to honoring the body too, right?
Yeah.
Really honoring what the body is presenting.
Right. Yeah.
What does it mean when emotion gets stuck in the body? Does it always manifest as pain?
Do you want to take that?
So, yeah, I'll take it. I was waiting. I didn't know who wanted it. So, in my experience, it doesn't always manifest as pain. In my experience, it can just come up apropos of nothing. All of a sudden, you're sobbing and you have no idea why, right? And the beauty of that, if you can really, and that's what we were talking about at the beginning of the show, and I don't know if our caller message person heard that, but the idea of creating container, right? Creating the ability in your body to really hold that emotion and allow it to move through, allow ourselves to feel it. So many of us shut down or tamp down because it's scary, especially whether it's neglect or abuse or assault or whatever. It's like it gets scary in here. And those emotions, when they come up, and that's why we end up the drinking, the drugging, the sex, the whatever. So yes, it can manifest as pain, absolutely, as the body speaks louder and louder if we don't pay attention. But it can also just manifest as emotions. One of the ways that I invite my clients to notice this is if your emotion is disproportionate to the perceived or the actual offense, right? Someone cuts you off in traffic, and while it might be disrespectful to your place in the lane and even a little dangerous and neglectful of their driving, you're ready to lose your ever-loving mind, right? I'm from New Jersey, and so like this, we do this really well, the honking and the screaming, but it's like there's this response that feels like it's very disproportionate to somebody just coming in front of us in traffic, yeah? And so that's a way to notice when some of that emotion maybe needs to come up that might not be attendant to whatever this instance is in your life, but might be something that is in there from who knows when.
Right. Yeah,
you
and
both
along
do
those
therapy.
lines, right? Along those lines of crying in a Hallmark commercial. That means that you're just holding on to stuff, or feeling tightness, gastrointestinal issues. It's just holding your muscles so tight, or your everything so tight because you can't feel, or you don't want to feel, or it's scary to feel. Then that's when it may not manifest as pain, but it manifests as other issues.
Right, or even irritable bowel.
Issues.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
The opposite of that, right? Not just always holding on, the opposite.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, for sure.
So it manifests in a lot of different
today.
ways. Yeah.
Some good questions going.
Wow.
So John, let us know if there's anyone who has called in and wants to. We welcome anyone to call in, and if you have any questions, but please let us know. I mean, we can keep talking for hours. So John, let us know.
I definitely will, ladies.
Okay.
Perfect. So can I ask you ladies then, how are you doing this embodiment in your practices with your clients? Because I think we need it in all domains, right? Not just coaches, but in all domains.
Yeah.
So, surely you could respond better than I can do it. I mean, I really work, honestly, I work it really in such a mental capacity, in a spiritual mental capacity, that I really do need the help with. It is mind, body, and soul. It's not just, the soul that I, constantly am talking about, but I also in this present moment have a body. And I mean, it's all of it. So I use my mind and my spirituality, but now I'm trying to get back into the body and really make some great changes for myself this year. I mean, 2020 is a whole ball game of new for everybody, and that's the one that I'm doing. So this is really helpful for me. I love that you had suggested setting an alarm or something so I could even remember. I even bought myself a stand-up desk, so because I work remotely, so I can lift it up and down, and I can walk around. And so anyway, I joined a gym and I have a private trainer now. So I mean, I'm really taking responsibility for doing everything I need to do. But it is mind, body, and soul. It's all three. And sometimes for me, I could just stay in that one domain and just be happy the rest of my life. But it's not why I incarnated. There's a whole bunch more that goes on. So it's trying to keep everything into perspective.
Yeah.
Shirley, how do you do all of it?
Yeah.
Or
Well, coming from neglect, I tend to freeze, and I can sit still for hours and hours and hours and not feel anything. So I just make myself move,
Yeah.
and just stretch. I've been stretching every morning to be able to start to make my body a little bit more flexible. I mean, I'm not flexible at all. But just learning, basically the somatic principles. I'm very in tune to my body just because I trained myself that way once I learned SC. But movement for me, especially because my job is so sedentary. I can literally be sitting for 12 hours a day. I get up, of course, to greet my next person and to go to walk to the kitchen and the bathroom and stuff, but not a tremendous amount of walking. And my patients, when you asked how do I work with them, with my clients, when someone first comes to see me, they know that I work somatically. So even though I do talk therapy and I was trained at UCLA, and I'm very, and I think that that's an important thing to first start to become aware of the why of things. There's always, and what are you noticing? There's always kind of we pause and go into the body, because I think the two just have to be connected. In
Grounding
therapy,
down that.
Right. In therapy, we're still not enough therapists know about the body part of therapy, and we're still all operating up here, and just talking.
Yeah.
So Nina says, I try to not hold emotions. Sometimes they just come out, and mostly by crying. I guess it depends on the issue and what's going on. When I have a hard day at work, I like to get off, drink, just have one beer, which may not be good, and sit on the front porch in silence. I'm with you, Nina, except with wine.
Wine. Yeah. But you know what? I mean, I just, I think it's important to also pay attention to what your go-to emotion is. For some people, their go-to is anger, and many times underneath anger is pain and hurt and disappointment. For some people, their go-to emotion is crying, and maybe sometimes under the crying, there's anger. So if you have a go-to emotion, I would be curious, is there something under this emotion?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or
What
even
would
a
you say to
go-to
that?
shutdown, right? A
Yeah.
go-to,
Go
not doing that, just shut down. Nope, everything's fine. Right?
Right. Yeah.
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 Yeah. Gosh.
For sure.
Everything in moderation. I don't, unless of course you have a very real issue, with addiction. I think everything in moderation. Nina, if having one beer after work works for you, who gives a fuck? It's a podcast.
Right.
We can use that word. I just don't. I'm not into these extremes of never or always. Even though sometimes I talk that way when I, that I just did a minute ago, referring to something else. But if a beer after work works, who cares? We also have to enjoy life, and as long as it's not getting in the way, then.
And as long as you're aware of where you're coming from as you're having that, right? I think that's I was just talking in an attorney wellness group that I run, and we were talking about the recognition of where you are when you pop that top. Right? It's one thing if you're just doing it blindly and it's like, this is just what I do, and you don't really think about it. But when you're feeling it and you're going, okay, what am I feeling as I do this? That gives you a world more information about where you're coming from.
One of the things that I do if I have a glass of wine, I actually bless the wine. And the reason I do that is it brings me, makes me pay attention to what I'm doing.
And that's it.
But I wanted to ask you guys something. Maybe you can help me with this. I have a client that recently had she was attacked by two women, actually attacked her, threw her out of her car, and slammed her head down. Yeah, slammed her head down. And she wasn't quite in a coma, but she was in the hospital for 2 weeks, I think it was. And is having trouble with literally, forget trusting again, but like leaving her house. And so in a case like that, would you guys work with somebody like that?
Shirley, you want to start? You want me to go?
You can go ahead, but I mean, it makes sense that she would start to feel that way, that she would start to be afraid of everything.
Totally.
Yeah, but go ahead, Cynthia. What would you say?
For sure. I mean, I think I've got so many thoughts, right? One is, wow, you're in a coma for a couple of weeks. Like just even landing back down in your body and coming back in and recognize, especially with whatever has changed for her physiologically since before the attack and when she was doing well, right? So even starting gently to orient to that. What is it like to be in this body now? And, one of the things, when you have that type of, violence or that type of shift in your life, you've got a whole different world before that than you do after that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I think orienting to where you are right now in this body, what's coming up for you, even just noticing as you gently touch back into this body. And then once she has that and starting to really feel the power and her own empowerment coming back in, the working on the I don't want to go outside piece and the attack piece. But I mean, I would be hard pressed to start working with her on that until we did a whole lot of just getting her comfortable, even with the idea of just where she is in her body right now.
Oh, that's very helpful. I appreciate that. So, John, should we take a caller?
Yeah,
Are you ready?
she needs to most definitely. Yeah, we have 2 calls, but Cal, she definitely needs to do some SE sessions.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'll talk to you about it later. Absolutely. I couldn't agree
Okay,
more.
absolutely. It's
Yeah.
it's a shock trauma that she doesn't have to live with it, and it'll
Yeah.
you know, it'll keep
Building.
kind of
Yeah.
building on itself. Thank
Yeah.
you. Yeah.
Yeah.
If she doesn't, it's an important piece, so it doesn't build on itself. Yeah.
Yeah.
I like Linda's comment earlier. She's saying this sounds like natural biofeedback without using a machine.
Kind of. Yeah.
Thanks, Linda.
Yeah, I love that. All right, so let's move to our calls. We have calls waiting from 9 to 5. You are on the air with us. Can we have your name, please, and where you're calling from?
Hi, it's Anna calling, and I just was listening to what you were all saying. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Hi, Anna.
Hi, Anna.
Yes,
Hi.
we hear you
I
loud
just
and
wanted
clear.
to say thank you so much for your, suggestions and support. And I'm the person who, I don't know, it's just so weird. Every week, I just happen to be right next to my phone when you all have your groups, and it's amazing how connected I feel to so much of what you talk about. And I was a therapist myself for an MFT for years,
Wow.
and I'm not practicing currently, and I really miss it. And I'm actually working with the somatic therapist now, but I've been so struggling that I've only been doing phone sessions with her, which isn't enough. And we're not really connecting, and I lost my old therapist I had for years, but he was strictly talk therapy, and I'm rambling. Basically, I just wanted to say how much I appreciate you all, and also the medication situation that I'm going through is absolutely, it's heartbreaking and traumatic and unbelievable, and I have been working on trying to find a new doctor since October.
Wow.
And along with my doctor.
Where do you live, out of curiosity? Are you in Los Angeles or?
I'm like in Walnut Creek, so California, Oakland, and Berkeley.
Oh, north. Oh, I have some wonderful practitioners in that area. Let me, if you can leave maybe your email leave us your email somehow, maybe leave it with John after you get off the air, and I can refer you to someone who's kind of my go-to, and he knows that area because I don't know it well, but he will find someone in your area because there's a lot of wonderful practitioners.
I wanted to ask for any kind of group energy or positive support in me.
Anna, what's your birth date, honey?
I mean, I'm nervous about giving all my information on
that. I don't need the year. I just need what's the date?
October 10th.
Okay. Oh, bless your heart. So you come in, your mind has already, you were born with anxiety. You come in with anxiety. And so your brain has to be stimulated all the time. So why don't you look into doing somatic experience yourself, becoming a practitioner? That's one greatest way to start it.
I have a somatic therapist, and
well, look into it. Since you already have an MFT, it'd be a great thing to add to it. But it would really help. But your brain has to be activated. Yeah, your brain has to be activated, or it will create anxiety. So I understand why you would feel overwhelmed. I get it, but you can do it. This is a great year for making all kinds of breakthroughs. I mean, major great breakthroughs. And we just had the new moon in Aquarius. That opens up all the doors to everything. So you're going to be just fine. Stay active. Stay active. Okay? That's how your birth placement is. You're welcome.
Big hugs to Charlene out there too, and big hugs to you, Anna.
Yeah.
Hey,
Yeah,
Charlene.
big hi
so
to you guys.
No, I appreciate everything. Take care, you guys.
Thank
You
you.
got it.
Bye, Anna. Good luck.
Bye.
And I think we just lost
Did
Shirley.
we
but
lose
I'm sure
Shirley?
she will be back. So yeah, we'll wait for her to come back. We're going to move on to our next caller. Area code 559 is on the line. Hello there. Can we have your name, please, and where you're calling from?
Hi, I'm Stacy. I'm calling from the middle of nowhere, California.
Hi, Stacy.
Hi, Stacy
Middle
from
of
nowhere.
Wisconsin. Hi. Hi, Stacy. How can we help you?
So first it was very interesting because I had heard something about listening to your body before in a different context. So I was thinking about that this morning. So I thought that was interesting. I just wanted to share that part. And then the other thing is I come from an abusive marriage. I've been out of it for 9 years. And I've noticed that things are better, but I also noticed that I have a hard time, especially when I get into an argument with men specifically. And I was wondering if you guys had any advice as far as how to listen to my body to kind of figure out how to overcome that.
Go ahead.
Sure. Thanks, Kelly. I absolutely do. First, I would encourage you to find a good somatic experiencing practitioner by you. Even if you have to drive a little bit, it's absolutely worth it. And the healing and just the awareness, I think, in that type of a container would be really beneficial for you. In terms of getting into arguments with men, I think a couple of things. One is noticing where you start to amp up. Right? Noticing what is happening that causes you to go into that space where you feel the need to kind of fight back, right? Arguments can kind of be that fight response where you're kind of coming out and almost self-protective, especially if you come from a history of DV. And so my invitation would be to notice, first of all, what circumstances sort of trigger that response. And then as you are first feeling that initial like anger or whatever rising, is it anger that's rising for you in that moment?
It has been. I haven't had an argument with anybody because I kind of just avoided men altogether for a long time. And I just got into one with my landlord of all people on Friday, and he was cussing at me and yelling, and I was really proud of myself because I didn't cry. But that's my usual response.
Okay. All right. So is it more of the fear response that comes for you?
Yeah. I just want to run away.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
You know,
And that's something, go ahead, Kelly.
Stacey, I was in a situation similar to that. And I had 2 sessions, actually, somatic experience sessions with Shirley years ago, at least 10 years ago. It changed my life. I am so pro somatic experience. Even though you live in a small town, you can do it. Figure out a place, even if you have to drive for an hour. It's so worth it. It was so freeing. I can't tell you how important that is. From that aspect, I had very similar situation. So there you go.
Yeah.
All right. So there you go. I've spoken.
You've spoken.
I don't know where Shirley went, but I think she fell off. Somehow she crashed here.
I don't know. I don't know where she is. It's sad not to have her here. So does that speak to your question? I think, do we still have her?
Yeah,
No?
she's still here. Yeah, we're just trying to get Shirley back, but we're doing that behind the scenes. Thanks, caller. You're still on the line with them. Go ahead.
Okay. I couldn't hear anybody for a second, so I'm like, oh, did I lose it?
So what Kelly was saying is definitely get yourself some somatic experiencing sessions. It's changed her life. And I would agree. I would wholeheartedly support that. And I would also encourage you to really just notice what happens in your body when you start going into that fear response. And just really honoring that and giving yourself the opportunity to feel it, maybe feel your feet, orient around, look around, see what's going on around you. Right? That's a really good way of just kind of like letting your body know, okay, there's no tiger coming to get me. And those are a couple of very, very, very beginning pieces for you. I hope that helps.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Stacy, for calling. Thanks so much. Well, I'm not sure where Shirley is, but really, Cynthia. John, are you with us?
I am with you. Yes.
Oh,
And I
okay.
am
Good.
trying to get Shirley back, but if she doesn't come back on, I'm trying to get her to join us at least by phone.
Okay.
And then we can continue with her by phone. I sent her the number, so we're just waiting for that.
All right.
Next question here. What are we searching for? Somatic practitioner. What are they called?
Yeah, they're somatic experiencing.
And I'll put
It's
the directory, as by the way.
Yeah,
Oh,
sure.
good,
We'll
good,
put up
good.
that. We'll
Thank
put
you.
that on
Perfect.
the site. Yeah,
Great.
definitely.
Yeah. So it's called somatic experiencing, and we're called somatic experiencing practitioners. And many of us have various different other degrees, LMFT, licensed massage therapist, licensed
Psychologist.
counselor, psychologist, doctor,
Yep.
right? Dr. Shirley, psychologist, body workers. And so, and if you wanted to bring more of the touch aspect in, and really some people, they just work really well with somebody working on their body. So there are various different aspects.
It's really an extraordinary thing, and I really value the work that you do, Cynthia. I love that
Thank
you're
you.
coming from a real interesting place from the law to this, which means that tells me that you would work so well with professionals. I mean, so well, because you've been them, you know how that works. You know,
Yep,
it always has helped me because I was a professional in
of
that
course.
capacity, and it always helped me so much because as soon as I see somebody that's in that world, I go, "Oh yeah, I know that world. Okay, bum." And we're off to the
Exactly.
races. I mean, I could actually go to any level they need. So it's an interesting
Yep.
place you're coming from, and I'd love that you, as an attorney, are did the Reiki. I find that fascinating. I think it's so great. So, and
You have
yeah,
to be balanced.
you do
You
have to
you
bring
work really
balance.
hard to be spiritually balanced and to make sure that you're in
Right.
alignment. You have to be balanced, right?
You betcha. It's so true. And I really
Mm.
want to thank you for being on the show. You were just
Oh,
terrific. And John, are you going to put up how to reach Cynthia?
Definitely. Yeah. We actually put that
great.
information up on our Instagram, on our Facebook.
Oh,
And
great.
yeah, we've been posting away about that. I just also want to remind folks to join the Facebook group that we have. It's called Both Sides Now TV Community, and that's our support group. So be sure to
That's
join
great.
that group. You can
Great.
get to it by clicking on our main page here on Facebook and hit visit group, and then go ahead and request to join the group. It's a private group, and we'll get you in.
And I also want to
That's
mention
great.
that I'm going to be in Chicago with James Van Prague. I'm going to be there Thursday, but I'll be with James for until Sunday. So anybody out there that's in Chicago, please come by and say hello. He's doing a 2-day workshop and doing a big thing on Friday. So come by and say hello. Hi, Shirley, you made it.
I'm back. I'm not
great.
sure what happened, but sorry I missed the last part of the show.
Welcome. We missed you.
So, anyways, Cynthia,
This is so wonderful. The opportunity to spend a full hour connecting with you ladies and talking about stuff we love. I feel so honored. Thank
Oh,
you
I'm so
very
glad
much.
you're here. That's
thank
great.
you
Yeah.
so much for being here with us.
Wonderful. Thank you. Yes, and I'll look forward to seeing you all soon.
You bet.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you so much for watching, and we will see
Thanks,
you next
everybody.
week.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.
You've been listening to Both Sides Now, featuring the unconventional duo Dr. Shirley and Kelly White. Two perspectives, one world.